being the stars, and all the guys at the top of the goal leaderboard are massive names from Mbappe to Messi, and on down the list. And then you look at, hey, man, if you go from 48 teams right now, that's 104 matches. If it's a 64-team tournament, it's 128 matches. So you get 24 more matches. Guess what that means? More hydration breaks.
Yes.
That's 48 more hydration breaks.
Well, we were kidding around that the reason they have to add more is because they lost money on the fact that they lost their water restriction.
That's right. They allowed all those free water bottles to come in the stadiums. They got to make it up somehow.
Yeah.
64 teams.
Well, and so, sometimes when you're projecting where things go, you're stuck with how it was. I have to believe that the fact that it was in Mexico, USA, and Canada is maybe a template going forward. Does that make any sense? I mean, that if you're talking about a tournament that size, you're going to need, some stadiums to. It can't just be in one spot.
It feels like the one country World Cup. I mean, who knows if it's dead? But I mean, the next one, of course, is in Morocco, Portugal, and Spain. So, to your point, a three-country model with, in a lot of ways, to accommodate the fact you're going to need a ton of infrastructure, and just not enough room in any given city for more than one or two teams at a time, right? So, I mean, it's such a massive thing now, and I guess the other way to look at it, though, Jim, is Gianni Infantino, who runs FIFA, has been under a lot of pressure, a lot of fire at this World Cup, right? About I think mostly around
should have blocked the White House.
Yeah,
at the White House, I'm not answering.
Exactly.
Speaking of which,
a lot of which was around that red card situation that he had everybody from his predecessor Sepp Blatter. He had UEFA, the European Football Federation, taking shots at him publicly. I mean, it was a firestorm of controversy, and a lot of people saying, is this guy really fit to run global football if this is the decision he's making? Maybe. I mean, I'm just saying sometimes you got to make some friends with some new federations, and by allowing more people into the tent, as they say, you make a few more friends at a time you need them.
Well, there's no bigger distraction in the world than here are the gate receipts, and aren't they nice?
Yes.
And guess what? We're adding 16 more countries, and the gate receipts will be, times 3.5.
Right.
Nobody's going to argue with any of that.
Right, because when it comes down to it, when you're the guy in charge of a sprawling organization like FIFA, you need support from as many federations as possible. And what's the best way to get support from more federations? More chances to get into the World Cup, or it's certainly a good way.
The ultimate pivot point in any boardroom and anywhere in the free world is we made more money, and we're going to make even more with our next step.
Exactly.
Nobody would ever question that.
Right. And so the rest of us sit around it's like with NHL expansion, right? It's like a lot of us sit around who love the game and watch the game and go, there aren't enough good players for NHL expansion.
I agree, but when you're talking billions, and I can remember when it went from 6 to 12, which is a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I had 50 grand in my pocket and I was older, I could be worth quite a bit now, because
you think?
That's all you need. All you needed was 50 grand up front for the $2 million to sort of leverage things. Now it's billions. It's worth 3 to 5 billion, right?
Yeah. When you see the Seahawks, just talk about franchise values. You just saw the Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment sell at a valuation of $12 billion US. You just saw the Seattle Seahawks sell at a value of $9.6 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's staggering. And so if you're an NFL owner, and there's been rumblings about expansion in the NFL, if you're a NHL owner and there's rumblings about expansion in the NHL, and of course there's NBA's in the same boat, it's not a secret why all these leagues and the World Cup are absolutely drooling to expand, because guess what? Franchise values aren't going down, and the one kind of unifying force in a world of fractured entertainment and streaming, and the one place where people gather in this society now is to watch live sports, and that makes them really valuable.
I agree. When you look at when you have all these equity firms buying in a minority interest in franchises across North America, it's because they know that's a good investment. That's your tip right there, and that was a fact. I think 2 years ago.
Yeah,
when we first saw that trend.
Exactly.
And so that's not going away. Otherwise, they'd pull their money out.
Yeah, we're going to find out. Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment is talking about peeling off some of its ownership stake to outside investors, right? And
why wouldn't you?
would it be private equity? I mean, we'll find out. I mean, it could be a rich guy that is friend of Edward Rogers, the guy who controls the whole thing, or it could be a private equity firm that says, we'll take 20% off your hands and write you a big check, and you can use Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment as a very, very lucrative piggy bank, so to speak, and get money out of it when you need it.
So I mean, just off the top, the number, you said 20%. So that's going to be what, $4 billion, right?
At the current valuation.
Yeah, $4 billion, and so you park it there, and 5 years down the road, the 4 becomes 7 or 8.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Who
right?
wouldn't do that?
I mean, who knows what it's going to become? I mean, we've been in this business long enough. We've heard people at certain moments in history say, "Oh, sports is peaking. These franchise values can't possibly keep going up."
Well, I could tell you that the one that I was always told was, "Wow, they can't get that for the rights."
Right.
Well, watch. Oh,
Exactly.
New entity needs to legitimize itself. They're going to pay it.
Yeah.
And so now it's the streaming, the apps.
Exactly.
So that's the new layer of broadcast. And so they have to justify themselves, and they will pay.
I mean, smart, and these are smart guys, Jim. These are not just, sports media ramblers like you and me. Like when the teachers' pension plan sold out of Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, what was the valuation? Under $2 billion.
Yeah.
And that was only, that was 15 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. And now it's like 6x of that. And you're sitting here going, okay, what will it be in another 12 years? What will it be in 20 years?
And in this particular case, because it's all in one little package, it may actually go up more than you could have expected.
Yeah, exactly. So it's you see why the expansion. It's amazing how basically one of the big storylines in every sport, the World Cup, the NHL, the NFL, the NBA, is about getting bigger. Because why not? Like if you're one of these owners and the commissioner's telling you, hey, we're going to get bigger, and guess what we're going to do when we do? We're going to write you a check for several $100 million. Like, who's saying no to that?
Nobody is.
Well,
it's never cheaper.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the person saying no to it, is saying, well, hang on, do we really want to dilute our product? Do we? And not only that, forget about dilute the product, because I think that's more of a concern from people who watch the games, and I'm not sure the owners do. Well, some of them do, I know, but do I want to dilute the profits? Because when
no, that's not going to happen.
Well, no, but when you bring two more, if you're gonna expand by 2 teams, you're bringing 2 more people in, 2 more ownership groups in. That share.
You mean the NHL?
Money. Yeah.
Well, the hope is that the NHL could finally get those TV ratings south of the border up. I mean, that's the big gap. When you're doing the comparable from league to league to league, NHL down here and all the other ones up here. If the NHL could ever add a 0 to its television revenue, look out.
Yeah.
And they've tried. It just hasn't worked, but we'll see. I mean, anything's possible. You just have to sort of go about it the right way. The way I look at all that dilution stuff is because I can go way back to when I was a kid, and there were just, a handful of teams in all the leagues. What's never been diluted is the championship.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to it, the Super Bowl actually didn't start out very well, but it's classic now. If you go to the NHL playoffs, by the end, you're absolutely thrilled. You may not like the end of the regular season or parts of the regular season, but I don't know too many people that complain about the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs, or Major League Baseball playoffs, or even the football playoffs. I mean, once you get into that part of the season, everybody's happy. That'd be my, that'd be the way I justify anything. Well, that part's a little weak, but this is good. And by the way, here's where we make our money.
Yeah.
The stuff over here, the regular season just pays the players.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can make the case that that's exactly why someone like Gianni Infantino would say, hey, who's going to complain if we expand the playoffs? Which is what the World Cup is, right? It's the World Cup finals. Like there's everybody that's a member of FIFA can throw their hat in the ring on the World Cup qualifiers. Only a certain select group gets into the World Cup finals. It was 32 for many, many years.
Yeah.
Now it's 48 this year.
And who complained about the 48?
That's the thing. There haven't been a lot of complaints about the 40.
I just think my only concern would be if you're at 5 weeks and you have to go to 7 or 8, maybe the early round stuff is only good if you're in it. If you have no concern about what happens in the early round and your team's going to go deep, you might lose a little interest that way. But again, I always go back to there's 3 suitcases full of money on the table now. In the next deal, there's going to be 7.
Yeah,
and nobody would ever say no to that.
Well, that's the point, right?
Yeah.
And I guess, look, 64 was a number that worked really well for the NCAA basketball tournament, right? Which was one of the North America's most successful sports products for a lot of years. Now they expanded beyond that, obviously, and because that's the urge. The urge is always to get bigger and make more money for all your constituents. But it's hard to imagine there's going to be a ton of pushback on the 64-team model when there really hasn't been a lot of complaints about the 48-team success.
No. And so we go to the semifinals, France against Spain tomorrow, England, Argentina on Wednesday, and this show will be on a little later because of those two games and top four.
Yeah.
And also, with all the madness with the 48 teams, it all worked out.
Yeah, to have the top four seeds, to have the top four teams in the world in the Final Four, it's a little bit stunning. And I know a lot of people would sort of roll their eyes and say, "Oh, how did Argentina get in there?" Because there's been some very questionable decisions that have allowed Argentina to move on, but they're there. And, it's awfully, awfully intriguing that they are, because there's not a person on this planet that loves to watch sports that doesn't want to watch Lionel Messi.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to miss the Targaryen for Norway.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't he something?
I mean, I literally watched him on Saturday, and Sunday night I'm watching the House of the Dragon. I go, there he is again. He's
exactly. That's basically it.
Yeah.
Right? It is shocking. I thought he handled himself with a lot of grace at the end of that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, that's much like the hockey thing when the team's eliminated. There is some pain there, but there's also a lot of class.
Yeah.
A lot of sportsmanship there.
For sure. Not always, but certainly in the case of Norway, they handled it well. Seemed to handle it. There was less kind of acrimony in the Norway camp than there was in the victorious English camp, where there was a little squabbling between their German coach and their best player.
And he almost said whatever guy. He just said whatever.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, when you watch that game, though, with the temperatures in Miami and the humidity of Miami, and by the end of that game, it felt like the players could barely move out there.
Yeah, I don't know that I could ever justify, especially when I know coaches do this, but I mean the player knows. The player's in the battle, and it's fine to say you could have, but the player knows the fatigue. Half the reason those guys fall down and look like they got shot is they're exhausted.
Exactly.
They get hit and they're exhausted. They've got the wind knocked out of them.
Yeah. Well, to your point, for as you say, the Targaryen Erling Haaland to have to come out of that game.
Yeah.
Because he was just had nothing left in his legs.
Yeah, he was done.
I mean, that's shocking in itself. That tells you how hard it was out there.
Yeah, right? so but only a player would know what's left in the gas tank.
Right.
You could easily look at anything and say, well, why didn't you do that? Because there was nothing left.
Yeah.
That's why it didn't happen.
Exactly. I mean, it was one of those situations where, the mind was willing, but the muscles were just not cooperating with all that humidity and heat. What was it, 40-something Celsius? You could just see it in the players.
Watch the football game last night?
Yeah, exactly. It's tough, eh?
Yeah, so the Cats dropped a lot of balls, but I have to believe their hands were soaked.
We were in the stadium, and they shoot to commercial during the hydration break, but I think the fans would have to have been awfully cynical to boo the hydration break in Miami yesterday, considering, they probably needed that one. They didn't need a lot of them in milder conditions during the World Cup, and I understand why the fans were booing the hydration break when it wasn't that hot out, and clearly it was just a gratuitous 3 minutes of essentially break to do 2 minutes of commercials that were going to make FIFA X number of millions of dollars. But they probably were pretty happy they had a hydration break yesterday.
So we're at the All-Star break. The Jays 45-51, 6 games under, and I believe I might have the math correct here. I think they were 14 over last year this time, so that's a 20-game sway. That's fairly significant. Well,
you go from the team that nearly won the World Series came within a whisker of winning it to a team that's now dead last in the American League East at the All-Star break, and it's just not a good feeling around this club. Just when you thought maybe we were thinking, speaking of House of the Dragon, we thought the clubhouse of the stuffed dragon.
Stuffed dragon on a stick.
Exactly. We thought maybe, hey, that was going to be the momentum shifter, and then they go and lose their final 2 games to the not-so-great Padres in San Diego. Just when you thought they might be picking up a little momentum after getting, big numbers on the board in San Francisco. What was it, 19 runs in the final 2 games in San Francisco? Yeah. They go and lose the series to the Padres. They just whatever anytime anything good happens to this team, it feels like they just can't sustain it. They just can't get on that run. And all the magic of the Dragons seemed to fade out pretty quickly there when they shifted locations to San Diego, Jim. And you wonder, like, what's it going to take here for them to get hot? You know they have it in them because we've seen it in the past calendar year anyways.
They are capable.
And yet there just haven't been a lot of signs that it's coming.
So if you were the general manager of this team, I mean, you have to sort of draw a line between what's in front of you now and what you think they can do and what they have already done going back to last year. I mean, how active are you at the trade deadline?
Man, it's a tough call because for all the negativity that we're talking about and all the downsides of how it's gone, you still look at it. Yeah, you are dead last in the American League East. That's very true. But you're 2.5 games out of the wild card because guess what? The rest of the American League is terrible.
Yeah, well, that's so. There's the ultimate assessment is we're not good, but everybody else isn't
almost
good
nobody
either.
else is.
So so you might be able to fool yourself into status quo with that.
Yeah, are you a soft buyer and a soft seller? It's hard to make the case you should be an aggressive buyer, right?
Well,
or is it?
This is what we call something to chew on. It's brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy $15 lunch at BP where you get an entree, side, and a drink, and you get it all in 20 minutes or less. A fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for the $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza. So my agenda would be I want to recapture the magic that was a year ago. So what does that entail? Do I get heavy at the deadline? I'm going to look at everything, I would think, and I'm not going to get stuck with, well, like maybe isn't an answer for me. I'm in the business of entertaining people. I want this to work. So I think I would be close to all in.
But in what way, though? Like, the thing is, like, what can you do at the trade deadline that's going to make George Springer play better?
Well, you need a left-handed bat.
Yeah.
So whoever that is. I mean, you sort of go through it. You need a starter. I'm going to the Steve Phillips list, which I totally agree with. You need a left-handed bat, a starter, and relief help. Okay. So whatever that turns out to be, I'm going to try and cross all those three things off my list so that I can go to the fan base and say, look, it didn't work in the first half. It was great last year. We're trying to get back there. Here's what I've done. Yeah. But nothing can't be the answer.
Yeah, nothing's not the answer. I agree with you because of what we just said. You're too close to being in the race here. You're 2.5 games out of the final wild card. Nobody really scares you in the American League, right? It's just not that. No, it's not that.
It's doable.
Not that imposing. And the thing is, like, to your point, like, you feel like if you got hot, you don't need 162 great games. You've already established that. You've gone this far. You've got 96 games now. You've gone 96 games being 6 games under 500, and you're still in the race. So you just need if you need a hot month to really kind of reestablish yourself as a shoe-in a playoff team, right?
Yeah, you're 2.5 games out, but you have to go through Baltimore, Houston, Boston, and Minnesota, and then catch Seattle to get there. I mean, there's a bit of a log jam in front of you, but you got 66 games left. Figure out the winning percentage where the math works and go for it.
Like, it feels like you could just one hot month of baseball, you could leapfrog a bunch of those teams, and you could be firmly ensconced as a wild card team. So to your point, maybe that would be, if you're not going to fire the manager, which it doesn't seem like they're going to. Like, that's the easy lever to pull.
Oh, you're not going to do that.
I'm not saying he deserves it, but I'm saying that's an easy lever to pull to try and get some kind of a change of direction in a ball club.
Yeah, that's just extremely awkward.
Well, for sure.
Hope you enjoyed the All-Star Game 5.
They just joined the line of teams that do it all the time. I mean, it happens regularly when teams aren't playing well. But if you're not going to do that, like, you do have to find some way to shake things up. I mean, we thought maybe the dragon on a stick would be the thing. Didn't seem to work for very long.
Jacket doesn't work anymore.
The jacket, yeah, they must have just throw the jacket out to Goodwill. I mean, it's like thrift it. Yeah. Because I don't know if it's got much of an effect anymore. So it's, maybe to your point, maybe you're getting me on board with saying, okay,
got to do something.
Let's do those three things.
I don't think this is a market where you could say, well, we thought it would work out.
Yeah.
I need some effort there.
Problem is, I think, what is really on the market when there's so many teams that are sort of feel like they're in it.
I just think that means you don't have to swing for the home run. Mm-hmm. A bunt single might work.
Yeah.
So you don't have to bring in the top end player, but just somebody who's going to give me something from the left side of the plate offensively.
Yeah, that could help.
And some depth as a starter and depth on relief. I don't need a number one. I don't need a stopper, do I?
No, I'm not saying you do, but I'm just saying, like, we know the real problem. I'm not sure it's a personnel problem. It's the fact that the guys you're paying aren't playing.
Well,
right?
That's true.
It's the fact that Springer.
It always goes back to that, because when they do it, everybody goes, well, now they're back on track. We're going to win, but they slip off track within 2 games.
So I'm saying I agree with you. Like, I think it's good. It would be good to deliver some kind of a jolt to the club, some kind of a recognition that you still believe in them. If you're Ross Atkins, to say, look, we still believe in this club, and we'll continue to pour resources into this club because we saw what you did last year, and we know you can do it again this year if they believe that to be true. But like, if George Springer keeps playing like the way George Springer's playing, and Vladdy keeps playing like the way Vladdy's playing, I'm not sure there's an antidote or a trade piece that's going to change any of that.
I agree. You almost have to do the politically correct thing and say, well, we did this to give our existing players the opportunity to win. And if you don't make those moves, then you didn't do that. You didn't set the table for them. But, yeah, you're right. Inevitably, it comes back to those who are paid to deliver.
Right.
I don't know any team that could survive people that are in prime spots that don't deliver.
Yeah. And there's just not as, like this. Remember last year with all the comeback wins and all the drama that seemed to unfold on a
great time
on a scripted
who's a scripted
basis.
The line would be, who's it going to be tonight?
Yeah.
You never knew, but it was somebody.
It was always somebody getting the Gatorade ice shower, and it was always a lot of smiles and
fun,
good feelings on walk-offs and heroic endings, and we just haven't seen a lot of it this year.
Nope. Coming up next, we're going to talk football. Dave Naylor will stop by. OverDrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. So this is OverDrive TSN 1050, streaming online, TSN 4 and 5, and live on YouTube. OverDrive on a Monday here until 6. Jim Taddy and Dave Feshchuk from the Toronto Star with you. CFL action last night. Hamilton got bombed in Saskatchewan and Regina, and the Argos on Friday night had a tough time in Winnipeg. The Argos going through the growing pains, if you will, or I guess the distraction of not having home field because of the World Cup. And this Saturday they're in Hamilton, so that's a tough start. They are 2-3 on the season. So is Hamilton. So the East has that familiar look where Montreal's 4-1,
exactly.
Toronto 2-3, Hamilton 2-3, and Ottawa 0-5.
It feels like Montreal's kind of like last year. Like, a lot of people felt Montreal was the best team all year, and a lot of the other teams in the East were having a hard time treading water even. And you do feel for the Argos. I know they knew what the schedule was going to be because of the World Cup, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's been. Doesn't mean it's been ideal, right?
But having said that, no Grey Cup was ever awarded in early July. I mean, there's been some horrendous starts that have turned out well.
Well, that's fair. I'm not saying that, but it doesn't mean you want that to happen.
No.
It doesn't mean it's a good omen that you sort of start off limping out of the gate, so to speak. And you look at the plight they've had. Not only have they not had their home field, because BMO Field's been Toronto Stadium of FIFA fame.
Yes Guy Stadium,
if you want to go there. Not only that, they've had to practice up in Guelph. The pretty long commute, depending on what part of the GTA you live in.
Or the time of day you're making it.
Or the time of day you're making it. I don't know if there's a good time. It doesn't seem like there ever is.
I think from 10 to 11 in the morning works.
It's a nice sweet spot?
After that, it's either 3 to 4 in the morning.
So, I see why the frustration is sort of bubbling up from Argoland at this point.
Yeah. Well, let's bring in Dave Naylor, our TSN football insider. Dave, welcome. How are you today?
Very well. How are you guys doing?
Good. So we have some Chad Kelly comments on the Argos schedule. Let's listen to them first and then get your reaction to them. We had some issue there, so our apologies for that. But bottom line is he's not happy with the schedule, and I guess there's a couple of ways you could cut this. I mean, everybody knew it was going to happen. That doesn't make it any easier to deal with. What's your take on what's happening with the Argos?
Well, I mean, I think it also happened at a place where they they're going to run into a good home field advantage. When you're playing Winnipeg, right? I mean, it's a place that's got 33,000 every week, and that's probably part of the frustration there. And look, I think I'm not surprised this has taken this long to kind of bubble up, because I think football players by their nature don't reach for excuses. And, the whole thing, like, is like the schedule. You hear players say you can only play who's on your schedule. You just, and injuries. There's so much adversity that goes into a football season that if you focus on, the why or the unfairness of it, it can be a very long track. So, Chad Kelly expressed some frustration of that at a place where, they have a very much the greatest. Winnipeg's sells out, I don't know how many, like 33,000 every single week. So when you go in there and you're up against those kind of elements and you don't have any home field, I'm sure that's where it kind of feels like you're at a disadvantage. And make no mistake, the Argos are at a disadvantage. Just for the record, they're not playing home games on the road. The record will show this year that they played 6 home games and 12 road games. And 12 road games. So, it's an unprecedented, kind of situation. And of course, they've been camping out in Guelph since the middle of May. And I'm sure as we get to the end of July and a little closer to August 6th, that first game, it just feels like a long, long track. But I think by and large, it's something that everybody was prepared for. And I didn't hear a lot of grumbling about, going through this process just, until we get to this point.
Well, they're not the only team, obviously, Naylor. I mean, BC Lions have been supplanted from their home stadium as well, and they're off to a slow start. I don't know how much of that you could attribute to the fact that they've been in a similar situation to the Argos, or the fact that they're just not very good.
Well, I mean, and they at least have a home field, right? And they built 18,000 temporary bleachers out in Kelowna and filled it, 2 weeks in a row. So, they won one and they lost the other. Yeah, BC has been a real mysterious start to the year team, just because of how strongly they finished last year, with Nathan Rourke winning the most outstanding player. I mean, they lose the Western Final on a final throw on the road at Saskatchewan, which they made some additions on defense which was the side of the ball that they needed to address. And then just all of a sudden they fired their special teams coach after 3 weeks. Nathan Rourke played well, but he was under a lot of pressure. The offensive line wasn't playing very well, and they're giving up a ton of points. So, they kind of reined that in last week. They've played better, and we'll see what they do back to back, because they got Edmonton now. I believe they were on the bye last week, so they've got Edmonton for the second week in a row, and beat them in Kelowna in a game where Edmonton struggled to run the ball and turned it over a whole bunch. But like when you talk, I heard you guys just coming up talking about, kind of slow starts to CFL seasons. And it's true, the playoff format, 6 out of 9 teams making the playoffs, does allow you some time to recover. And BC is one of those teams that I would look at absolutely and say, this is a team that we could look back on, but with a team we see by the end of October, maybe very, very drastically different than the one we watched back in July.
Yeah, I agree. The observation is that Toronto, Hamilton, and Ottawa are off to not very good starts. But you project forward, and I would suggest to you that of Toronto, Hamilton, and Ottawa, for different reasons, the Argos have the best chance at rectifying that.
Yeah, because they've got the best player under center, and look, I think there's reasons sometimes why slow starts in the CFL can be overcome. I mean, it's a league with a high degree of turnover. It's a league with a short training camp. I often say a lot of the roster evaluations and roles and player development in this league continues, really for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. It's not like the NFL where you've got off-season weeks, you've got, 7 weeks of training camp and all that. I mean, NFL training camp seems absurdly long, especially when you look at how little the actual players that are going to be playing in the season actually do during training camp. It's mostly watching guys that are going to be on the street, come past Labor Day. But in the CFL, you've got 2 preseason games, you got about 2.5 weeks of training camp, so that kind of extends. And I was saying that not that you want to look at teams that benefit from injury, but the team that benefited the most from Bo Levi Mitchell's injury, it's got to be the Ottawa Red Blacks, right? They were 0-5, and every game they played, the other team has the best quarterback. And the only weird thing is in the schedule, they don't play till October 2nd. So it's kind of unfortunate for Ottawa, because you figured they could climb back into this thing based on what we saw Jake Delagala do Sunday night against Saskatchewan. I mean, He just didn't look like a starting caliber quarterback in the CFL. He just wasn't seeing it. Didn't seem to have a presence. Wasn't particularly accurate. And of course, they're going to have to figure out what they're doing onward. But Chad Kelly, for the most part, has looked pretty good this year. He's been a little bit erratic. He leads the league in interceptions. He ties for the league lead in touchdowns. I think given that he was away for 580 days, you can figure there's going to be some refinement over the course of the season. With the injury, he had his broken ankle. But there's no question. I think Toronto's got a lot to figure out on defense, but they've got a lot of good skill players around. They got to get the run game going. But I would say, of the three right now, you would say Toronto is in the better position. Yes.
Hey, since we're talking about teams that have to move stadiums, Naylor, let's talk about a team that's moving across the street, essentially, out in Orchard Park, New York, to a very shiny looking thing. I've been out there. I've seen that new spaceship looking.
I got a tour like 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay. So you've seen more than I have. I've just seen it from the outside. But obviously there's a lot of talk about the new stadium in Orchard Park and how the Buffalo Bills will choose to fill it this season, and whether this year could be their year, because we've been wondering if it would be their year for quite a few years now. How do you sort of read the landscape in Bills land at this moment?
Well, I think, it's really interesting because they've promoted the offensive coordinator to head coach, right, in Joe Brady. And offense is not the side of the ball that, that people are upset about in Buffalo. And, they've run back pretty much the entire offensive personnel that was there a year ago. I mean, there's basically going to be two changes. They're going to have a new starting guard, and they've got DJ Moore at receiver. And like everything else is status quo. The tight end room, the rest of the offensive line, the three running backs, the rest of the offensive skill players, and Joe Brady's still calling the plays. So, the one thing about Buffalo is they're the most run-heavy offense in the NFL, which, like on the surface, the absolute sort of simplest thought is, hold on a second. Josh Allen is your quarterback in his age last year 29 season. What are you doing handing the ball off more than any other team in the NFL? Now, they did produce an NFL rushing champion, and you may say that with the receiving talent they had to go with Josh Allen, maybe you couldn't run a pass-heavy offense. But I expect this year they're going to be more pass-heavy, having DJ Moore, the first legitimate, potential number one receiver. They're certainly paying him like a number one receiver, and that often dictates usage, since Stephon Diggs. The curious thing for me is going to be defense, because they fired a defensive-minded head coach in Sean McDermott, who philosophically played a certain way, right? We will give up the run. We will give up passes underneath, but we are not going to get burned deep. This is a big chunk league, and we're going to make teams earn their way down the field. And the criticism of that style is when you absolutely need to stop and need to get off the field, can you? And that has been an issue in Buffalo. And ultimately, the Bills, Sean McDermott got fired because the Bills, I don't know the number, but if you figure out all their playoff losses, the average number of points they surrender, it's in the high 20s, right? It's like they've lost a lot of playoff games, given up a big, big number, where you would look at what the offense and Josh Allen was doing and say, that should be enough to win you a playoff game. Now, the offense has had his hands on the ball in the final minute with an opportunity to win a few times and not done it on the spot. But ultimately, I think when you look at the sort of the overall performance, it's the defense in postseason that's kind of let the Bills down. Well, now you're bringing in Jim Leonard, a former Bill. Yeah, he was coaching, not the defensive coordinator, but he was coaching in Denver last year, where they play a much different style. They're going to play multiple fronts. They're going to play more man defense. They're going to be more aggressive at the line of scrimmage. They're going to blitz. They're going to take more chances. They're going to match up personnel more often than going with sort of the same 11 guys out there on a base defense. So that's the side that's going to be interesting, and it may take a while to figure out, because Buffalo's really invested in defensive personnel the last several off seasons, but most of those guys were drafted and signed for a different defense. So there may be some sorting out to do here, but that's the side of the ball where both scheme, coaching, personnel, you're going to see the biggest differences. I don't know that, the offense is going to look particularly different, but it will be a very different year just for that reason in Orchard Park, New York, no question.
So based on all of that, I mean, sometimes teams, when they get so close, end up outthinking themselves. Did they do the right thing, or did they outthink themselves?
Well, it's almost like a hybrid change, right? Like, they didn't clean house, and they didn't stay consistent. It's, and then frankly, I was surprised when Joe Brady got the job. I just figured, okay, they're going to go a whole other direction. But Joe Brady was getting head coaching interviews elsewhere. Certainly the offense. You'd had Josh Allen win an MVP and James Cook win a rushing title the last 2 seasons. So you can't say, they weren't productive on that side of the ball, and did it, as I said, both seasons without a true number one receiver. So, it is kind of an interesting decision they made to go consistent on one side of the ball and change it up on the other. And at the same time, I think it changes the nature of your team based on whether your head coach is a defensive minded guy or an offensive minded guy. And I think that's the other thing that people are kind of interested in. How much, even though Joe Brady was running the offense, how much was he influenced by Sean McDermott, and how different might Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, be, even though he's not by title offensive coordinator, it's Pete Carmichael, but he's still going to be calling the plays. So as an offensive play caller, how different will he be without Sean McDermott there, perhaps leaning some of his influence on that?
Naylor, we started off the show today talking about rampant expansion in pro sports. We started off talking about the World Cup of Soccer, where they're conversing about going from the newly expanded 48 teams to a newly expanded 64 teams in 2030, the 100th anniversary of the thing. We know the NBA has been talking about expansion. We know the NHL has been talking about expansion. I'm wondering, when you look at your football beat, you got two leagues there, the NFL and CFL. How likely do you think, if at all, expansion could be on those two fronts?
Well, let's start with the CFL. And I always try to put this in perspective for people, Dave, by using this line. The year I was born, the Canadian Football League was 50% bigger than the National Hockey League. 50%. Wow. The CFL was a 9-team league. The National Hockey League was a 6-team league. And as we know today, the Canadian Football League is still a 9-team league. Okay, there's been a lot of smoke come out of a couple of places this summer in sort of splashes in the media, one out of Quebec City, one out of Halifax. My opinion on those situations, and we've kind of reporting has reflected that, is that one of those is real and one is not. And the one that's real is Quebec City. I do believe the reports that came out of Quebec City this summer that the league has been significantly engaged in that community for about a year with business people, with political leaders. I think the current leadership of the CFL looks at Quebec City very differently than previous leadership. So that, and they look at it and they say, hold on a second. We got a market that's the same size as Winnipeg. There's no major professional sports team there. It's in a football mad province. Why are we not there? And of course, the answer in the past has been, wow, it's a Laval Rouge or town. You can't go there. They own it. They've got the locks on it. Well, they play 4 home games a year. And look, I get it's different, right? But they, regular season, I get it's different. Not same, but can you imagine somebody saying, well, we can't have a team in Winnipeg. The Manitoba Bisons play 4 games a year. No, like again, and I get the Laval Rouge are way more of a phenomenon than the Manitoba Bisons are. But that argument that you can't go there because Laval is there only makes sense to me if those games are drawing 175,000 people, and they're not. They're drawing about, less than 20, and sometimes closer to, 10 or 15. It doesn't add up. So I think the league, and they've got Laval on side. Laval is not the unfriendly partner in that market. Like, they understand we're probably going to get some football infrastructure introduced to this community that would be good for us. And there's room for everyone. So Jacques Tanguay, the financier of that town, is on record as being in favor of CFL expansion to Quebec City. I don't know when we're going to learn more, but I would expect, within a calendar year, that's going to go one way or the other. And if I was guessing right now, I think it might go positive. And which would give you, think of all the things you get. 10 teams, 5-team East Division, rivalry with Montreal, the French language TV deal. There's like 5 boxes that would tick. On the NFL, it's funny because the NFL has been the league that has been the least aggressive when it comes to expansion, right? When you think of it, it's expanded very, very slowly. And, people are going to ask about Toronto. Let me just quickly say, they just built a $2.1 billion stadium in Orchard Park, New York, with a record $850 million of public money sunk into that place. They're not going to open up the border for Toronto after doing
Yes.
that. The NFL will keep Toronto closed as an NFL market and keep people flowing across the Peace Bridge to fill that stadium to justify the $850 million that the state of New York and the county of Erie County have put into that mark. So I think Toronto is put it this way, I don't know that it's ever been further from happening in my lifetime than it is today. And, I'm at the point where I'd like to live a long time, but I think I probably will never see it happen in my lifetime.
Right.
I still think the NFL, entertains ideas of Europe. I don't know how far away we are from that. I don't know. I would think that the logistics would probably be that you'd have a European division so that teams weren't having to cross the ocean every single week. There'd be issues with the Players Association. There'd be all kinds of issues, but that's the NFL expansion that I think we could one day see. And as you know, they're playing more and more. Maybe they just say, hey, we got these international games. Everybody's in the pool for this one. Jacksonville's kind of doubled down on it. This is all we need. We can have our cake and eat it too with Europe. We don't need to expand. But that's the one that kind of intrigues me, and I think it would be wildly successful. And just with the 1 game a week phenomenon thing, they're already doing it. Like teams are already going over there and playing. And I feel like it's almost been like there was a season a couple years ago where Jacksonville stayed there and played 2 weeks in a row. And I thought, man, it almost feels like an experiment to see what kind of advantage it would be like if a team's sitting in Europe and another team has to go in there rather than going into Europe at the same time. So that's the one that I would be. I don't know that there's another market in the U.S., that I'm sure they don't. There are tons that would love to have a team, but I don't know that there's one that, the NFL is particularly interested or feels that it needs to be in.
Dave, thanks for your time. Enjoyed the conversation.
Hey, thanks very much, guys. And hey, the Argos are home on August 6th, so Chad Kelly will not have to wait long. And yeah, it's been I'm sure at this point in the season, in the height of summer, it feels like it's been a long way. Take care, guys.
Pretty frustrating. Yeah, pretty frustrating. Thanks, Dave. Coming up at the top of the hour, Cody Decker will stop by Julian Guzman at 5:30, and we're threatening Yes Guy, No Guy next as OverDrive continues on TSN 1050, streaming online, TSN 4 and 5, and live on YouTube.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
OverDrive on a Monday. Jim Taddy, Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star. Coming up at the top of the hour, Cody Decker will stop by and we'll do the update at where we are at the All-Star break. And for the Jays, that's not good. I enjoyed that expansion conversation. I mean, I wish I could have the figures of what the NFL could generate in Europe, because I bet those numbers are huge.
Wow. I mean, when teams are selling for almost $10 billion on the open market, I mean, what's the expansion fee, right?
Yeah. But
That's
I mean, what I mean, just that whole pool of international money, I'd be fascinated with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, clearly there's interest over there. I mean, and as Naylor said, it does feel like this whole, going over there and playing, for the Jaguars to, have played 2 games in a row over there. It does feel like they've been in a long period of testing the market and understanding the market and seeing, what would work in terms of how much will European travel taxes teams and how much, how feasible is it, right? I mean, they always say, like if they ever build this new class of jet that can get across the Atlantic quicker than the ones they have now, maybe that would be the tipping point for travel on a more regular basis over there. I don't know, but it does seem to me like, hey, if it takes you 5 hours to fly from, the East Coast to the farthest parts of the West Coast, I mean, it's not that much longer to fly from the East Coast over to England.
Well, and then once the NFL does that, if they're first, the NBA and the NHL would follow, because there's a footprint there. I mean, it's not easily done, but it can be done. There's interest there,
especially when you got the resources of the NFL, right? Like they can do it. They have the money to invest in it, and Jim, like it's what we're talking about. Like sports is such an attractive investment for people looking to park capital and know that it's going to grow, that it doesn't feel like you're going to have a lot of a hard time raising, if you're going to be the principal owner of a team, raising the rest of it. Seems like there's people lining up.
Yeah. Well, that's the road ahead. Pretty well done domestically at all levels
for the NFL.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll step out. Cody Decker is next. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and live on YouTube.
This is Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Don't be shy, shy, shy. La 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 la.
Hour number 2 of Overdrive on a Monday. Jim Taddy and Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Stars subbing for the regulars. The boys have some time off and well-deserved. And, we threatened to do this in the last segment, but couldn't squeeze it in. But I think it's time for...
Yes Guy, No Guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, drivers and passengers, time now for Yes Guy, No Guy, the rare occurrence on Overdrive. All rights reserved and have been rescinded for this particular occasion. So Yes Guy, No Guy, Mr. Feschuk, Morgan Riley is still a Leaf when the season opens.
There's a lot of me that wants to say no guy to that question because we've all heard the rumblings. We've all understood that Morgan Riley, the longest-serving Leaf, maybe needs a change of scenery, and maybe the Leafs could use that $7.5 million of cap space that he's on the books for 4 more years in a different direction, maybe a younger direction, right?
Yeah. On
a decor that is very heavily weighted toward 30-something guys, and some of whom are 36 in the likes of Chris Tanev.
And injured.
Yeah, and played 11 games last year, right?
Yeah.
So I want to say no guy, except that, we've seen, there was that San Jose rumbling, and then they got the Darnell Nurse deal done. It doesn't seem like there's an obvious destination for him right now. And
yeah, I would agree with that.
And if they do trade him, they better be bringing back a really proficient defender because they don't have a lot of defensive depth, Jim. When you think about, they're going to be putting a lot of faith that Chris Tanev at age 36 can come back and have a really good season. You got Darren Radish. They've overpaid him to some degree as, an unrestricted free agent, which you understand. He was due for a payday, but he's 30 years old and, doesn't have a huge track record. Like, they need somebody else is what I'm saying. I'm not sure that Philippe Myers and Ben Danford is the kind of defensive depth that you want.
They need another top 4.
Wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I don't know where they get it, but to me, it's less about Morgan Riley, but more about how do you make this blue line? You've done some work on it,
yeah,
and I applaud what they've done, but you need more work because that second pairing, I don't know how that's going to go. Is Tanev going to be healthy? We hope he is.
Yeah.
We hope he can return to the form. And in Morgan Riley's case, I think you would like somebody a little cheaper and a little younger.
Ideally, that's the ideal
in that spot.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really has nothing to do with him other than when you look at the big picture, you sort of zero in on the 3-4 guys and you go, well, that's not bad, but there's potential there for it not to be good.
And obviously they see upside in Emile Andre, who we haven't mentioned, who they picked up at age 24 here. He's got puck moving ability, which is one thing they've really lacked of late, for sure. But look, again, they're putting faith. There's a reason they re-signed Troy Stetcher at $1.35 million cap hit for the next 2 years because they don't have a lot of other options, Jim. And, he's a 32-year-old journeyman. He played really well out of the gate when he arrived in Toronto. In a lot of ways, he was a real breath of fresh air. But that said something about the state of the decor, that he could be that, right?
Yeah, I always go back to sort of mission statements. If the mission statement, and I think it was, we're going to try over the next 2 years to get this thing to where it should be. We want to be better. Then you don't go into a season with a question mark. And to me, the blue line, there's been some repair work, and I like it, but I need more.
I agree.
As is right now, it's still a question mark for me.
Yeah, especially because it's a bit like the Kawhi trade with the Raptors. Like, if that doesn't go through, and then Grady Dick and Brandon Ingram walk back through the door, when they've been hanging out with the LA Clippers at Summer League, thinking they're now LA Clippers. Like, I'm not sure, is Morgan Riley all in as a Toronto Maple Leaf when we've spent the whole offseason talking about Morgan Riley wearing another sweater very soon? That's not going to be an easy task for Morgan Riley if he's got to suit back up in the blue and white.
Yeah. I guess we can welcome in our next guest, right? Cody Decker is the co-host or the host of Derek and Decker. Cody, welcome. How are you today, sir?
Oh, live in a Twilight Zone version of the dream. How you boys doing?
Well, ours is the outer limits.
Just as awful. I love it.
Yeah. And so joining us on the Maple Toyota Hotline is Cody Decker. And the reason I say that is because of the Blue Jays' first half. What do you make of that? I mean, that's quite a contrast to last year.
Boy, it's almost been a reality check for the team a little bit. But here, I keep looking at one thing, and I just think everybody in Toronto and everybody in Canada and everybody in the American League should still look at this. Despite being 6 games under 500, you're 2.5 out of a wild card spot. It's not just the Blue Jays. The entire American League has been a dumpster fire this year, and it's anybody's game over there for the AL pennant.
Yeah, we were talking about that too, Cody. That's sort of the glass half full silver lining of this Blue Jays pre-All-Star break run, where they haven't really been running as much as they've been limping. But how do you approach that if you're a general manager in a situation like this, right? Like your top players, the George Springers of the world and the Vladdy Guerrero Juniors of the world haven't justified their big tickets, and yet you're still in it despite that. If you're Ross Atkins or any one of these American League general managers that are in the hunt, but with sub-500 records, it's not an easy decision whether you should be a buyer, a seller, somewhere in between. I mean, how do you rationalize that one?
For me, when you're the Blue Jays, I think you're a buyer in this situation, flat out. Mentioning those contracts just alone, for me as a GM, I'd want to justify those contracts. And the fact that I'm only 2.5 out of a wild card spot in a very open American League, I would honestly push my chips in and go for it. Ernie Clement has been a very, very, very good offensive piece for you guys, thank God. And hopefully you guys can get healthy on the pitching side in the second half. Kevin Gossman, you actually name a guy, and honestly, I just hope he gets healthy.
Yeah.
So when you look at the teams that are clustered around the Jays, Baltimore, Houston, Boston, Minnesota, even Seattle, is there any more desperation there than what the Jays would face?
The one team that always worries me is Seattle, because honestly, Seattle has been the biggest disappointment so far to me in the American League this season. I was really looking forward to Seattle and Toronto kind of running it back the same way they did last year. That might have been, if it weren't for such an amazing World Series, yes, sorry about the ending, obviously, but the World Series was incredible. If that World Series was not that incredible, I would have honestly thought that American League Series was one of the best series I've seen in the last 25 years. I honestly worry about the Mariners more than I do any other team on that list. The Baltimore Orioles, I just don't think they're there. I think they're kind of broken. Their young guys never kind of came into the fruition the way they expected. And the other team you mentioned is the Minnesota Twins. And man, oh man, death, taxes, and I will never believe in the Twins.
Hey, Cody, you're an LA guy. I mean, we know that Shohei Ohtani is not going to be playing in the All-Star game to tend to some nicks and cuts, but when we look at the Dodgers, obviously with the Blue Jays having played them in one of the classic World Series of our era, we look at them and we go, oh boy. Just when the Blue Jays took a dip after their magical run to the World Series, the Dodgers continue to be one of the great juggernauts of the sporting world. A plus 149 run differential. Yeah. I mean, they're just leaps and bounds better than almost everybody in baseball. Do they have any weak links? Is there any sort of way you can kind of say, hey, they can be beaten?
There absolutely is ways they can be beaten. But here's what's actually frustrating about the Dodgers if you hate the Dodgers. It's the fact of how they're winning this season. It's not just that they're winning, because I think everybody blanketly looks at the payroll going, well, they're clearly buying it all. Let's take a quicker look at that actual lineup, because that whole payroll has been on the IL almost the entire season. With the exception of Shohei Ohtani, we've seen IL stints from Mookie Betts. We've seen IL stints from Freddie Freeman. The entire pitching staff. Blake Snell's barely pitched this year at all. Glasnow hasn't pitched at all this season. Edwin Diaz has pitched in, I think, 3 games for the Dodgers. There's been $170 million of the Dodgers' active payroll on the IL. And the guys that have been absolutely doing it is guys like Justin Robleski, guy who's major league minimum, just got named an All-Star. Andy Paez just got named an All-Star, major league minimum. Miguel Rojas, who saved the World Series for the Dodgers last year, is on a very low deal. So the Dodgers have this incredible next man up mentality that is ungodly frustrated if you want the Dodgers to lose.
So we were talking about the Jays going in at the trade deadline. How do you see that market? How do you see the trade deadline? You think it'll be very active, or because everybody's sort of struggling, it might not be that active?
I was thinking it was going to be active, but because of the American League struggles, all of a sudden, I thought Joe Ryan was going to be a really interesting trade piece. But now, looking at the Twins being the team closest from the outside looking in on the wild card, can you justify trading away a Joe Ryan right now? I find that difficult to do. I still look at Sandy Alcantara going, well, he should have been an arm that's available in the market. Now the Marlins are holding on to that third wild card spot in the National League. You look over at other teams as well. Yordan Alvarez, I thought for sure was going to be dealt. No, not with the Astros, only 2 games out of a wild card spot now. So is it active? Yes, but it's going to be active around one particular name, and that's Tarek Skubal. I think any team that's looking to absolutely compete needs to get their hands on Tarek Skubal, and because the Dodgers are definitely going to try to get their hands on him during this trade deadline, the Cubs are going to need to try to do it. If I'm the Yankees, I definitely try to do it. If the Red Sox are honestly interested in actually making a playoff run, they should do it. Blue Jays, because your injuries have been so drastic to your pitching staff, I would try to get my hands on any arm that isn't nailed to the ground in the American League. It's all about arms these days, man. For lack of a better phrase, it's an arms race. Arms are breaking down at an exponential level in the Major League Baseball, so everybody needs the pitching depth.
So let's go back to the Tigers. I mean, this guy wants to stay there, but apparently he's not going to. What do you make of all that?
I make it as an organization that I personally do not believe is really realistic about winning. I don't know why they won't pay this man the money that he has clearly earned. He's won 2 Cy Youngs in a row. I firmly believe he'll be in the mix to win at least one more. It's honestly disheartening because I think those fans in Detroit deserve better than this. This is a very vibrant fan base that you see it when they win. They show up. They love their stars. And the fact that they are making it abundantly clear that they will not pay their best pitching star they've had since the first round of Justin Verlander, quite frankly, I'm not even a Tigers fan, and I'm disheartened for them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Cody. Hey, you're a Santa Monica guy based in beautiful Southern California, and the basketball world is currently sort of being held up by 2 guys who played their basketball in L.A. this past season. We know the Kawhi trade is holding up everything in Toronto, and whether or not it's going to go through, whether or not the Clippers are going to be punished. And then there's LeBron, former Laker LeBron, now waiting very patiently, or maybe just waiting because he knows he can make everybody very anxious to see where he goes to find his next destination. What do you make of both of those quagmires in the NBA ecosystem?
Boy, oh boy, the Kawhi situation is interesting, especially if it ends up that Toronto's all of a sudden holding the bag on the suspension. I do not want to see a world where that happens because that would be just ugly. That being said, it's being held up, obviously, for those reasons. Anytime you're trying to circumvent the cap, which is definitely a problem you're going to have when you have a salary-capped league that should not be salary-capped, you're going to run into these issues. And frankly, it's just going to be issues that Major League Baseball would run into if this ever were to come into fruition. Not to mention, that's already a league that's dealing with anti-tanking legislation right now. So I'm not really certain why anybody thinks a salary cap solves anything in any sport. As for the LeBron of it all, listen, I'm not a LeBron hater. I'm not a LeBron fan. I'm very appreciative as a Laker fan of what he did for this team. He took the darkest years here in Los Angeles, post-Kobe, during those Swaggy P era years, and made us an immediate contender again and re-legitimized us overnight. I will always thank LeBron for that. But I would not have been upset if he left at any given moment, and I'm not upset that he's gone now. I think it was time for them to turn the page anyways, and if LeBron ends up back in Cleveland like I personally think he's going to be, good on him to go for his good retirement tour with a team that's absolutely contending. That being said, I'd love to see him in Philly. Wouldn't that be wild if he went to Philly? Oh, I want to see it, man.
Back to the Kawhi stuff. I mean, I think anybody in Toronto would go, why would that impact the Raptors? This was a Clippers Kawhi thing in Los Angeles. Why does that transfer?
It honestly shouldn't. I don't even know. But last I checked, the way the trade is actually set up is set up for the Toronto Raptors to actually have to wear the suspension, of which case, to me, there's no justification in that whatsoever unless something has changed. The trade is just kind of on the books now. Everything's been agreed to. I don't know what type of legalities they can even come up with at this point to kind of get out of it unless the trade just all of a sudden blows up in everybody's face. But I don't think the Raptors want that, and I know the Clippers don't want that.
Well, what's your sense, though, Cody? I mean, what's the sense around L.A. about what the league might do to the richest owner in North American sports. I think that's one of the key complications here is how do you deliver a punishment that can actually punish a guy in Balmer who there's no amount of money you can fine him that would make a dent. It's very difficult to impose discipline, especially when you're Adam Silver and you are essentially employed by the owners.
I can't stress this enough. You hit the nail on the head. Where do we go from here? I have no idea. We're in unnavigated waters at the moment. And at the end of the day, there's a portion of the NBA going like, well, it's better than the last Clipper owner no matter what. So whatever. I'm willing to bet he's going to get out with a slap on the wrist just to kind of make it go away. Because here's the good news. The only good news and saving grace that Mr. Ballmer has right now. The Clippers in Los Angeles are like the 17th most important professional team in Los Angeles. So this is not weirdly getting as many headlines over here as you would think. Thank God the Lakers are making all the noise out here that it's kind of getting swept under the rug. And I'm hoping, or really rather thinking, that Adam Silver is very hopeful that can just go over to the international waters of Canada and Northern America.
And not to sort of belabor the point, but I mean, there's the criminal aspect of what went on with that foundation. That's been sort of separated from the basketball, hasn't it?
Which is really hard to make abundantly clear that the man's fraud conviction has nothing to do with the basketball issues, which, interesting that they were very loud about that.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating stuff. It really is. I mean, Cody, when you think about the NBA this year, I mean, we saw Wemby, make a run at the finals and, nearly get there. The Knicks are the reigning champions, but it feels as though like there's a lot of general managers out there who believe that their team is one piece away from being a championship team. LeBron could be that piece. Obviously, the Raptors feel Kawhi could be that piece if this deal can finally edge its way across the finish line. But how do you see this league as wide open as some GMs seem to be seeing it, or how do you look at the NBA?
I see that wide open in the East. I think the East is so interesting yet again. Where the West, I still think it's two teams and everybody looking up at them. I really think the Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder are not going anywhere anytime soon. And it doesn't matter who finishes third right now. It seems like they're a distant third. I like the moves that the Timberwolves made. I really like the moves that the Lakers made. I'm a diehard Laker fan, and I like the moves they made. But even I'm looking at this realistically on paper. They might be the fifth best team in the West. The East, man, it's a little bit more interesting. You could have made an argument for about 5 or 6 different teams in the East to come out to win that side of the coin. I'm disappointed that Detroit didn't get by the Knicks. I'm disappointed that Cleveland fell off the way they did. But, hey, good on the Knicks and their fans. I'm sure the Knicks fans will be very gracious and not at all annoying about this victory.
So, as you know, we're at the All-Star break. No issue with it here. How about you with Dylan Cease starting?
No issue whatsoever. He deserves the start. Remember that bright light that I talked about, Clement? Dylan Cease, just as bright. Phenomenal work by this guy all season long. Loved the pickup for the Toronto Blue Jays when they got him. I thought he'd be spearheading a very talented and healthy pitching staff. Let's hope that pitching staff can get healthy in the second half. And, yeah, Dylan Cease, K-Prop King. Love him to death. Can't get enough of him. Toronto's very lucky to have him.
All right, we get the home run derby on tap here, Cody. I mean, it's in Citizens Bank Park, Philadelphia. I think the betting favorite right now is Kyle Schwarber, but you got some heavy hitters in there with Junior Caminero, Bryce Harper, Ben Rice. Who do you like, or do you care?
I definitely care. I love the old school nature we're getting back to. Enough of this timed nonsense. Hated that version of the home run derby. Give me this all day long. We get to ooh and ah at the majestic distance and home runs. I'm calling this right now. Jordan Walker going to have the longest home run of the night. But my winner, and you didn't even mention it, Minnetonka, Murakami.
Okay.
My guy, out of the south side of Chicago. He's had half the at-bats of everybody, and he's got 20 home runs. I have no idea what he can do in a batting practice / home run derby setting, but based on what I've seen and the numbers in Japan, I'm all in on this guy.
We'll end on that. Cody, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
No, thank you, and I appreciate you.
Okay. I like when he said this guy.
Yeah.
This kind of a good feature.
There you go.
Yeah, Cody Decker joined us in the Maple Toyota hotline. It's time to Toyota. Check out Toyota Tacoma and Toyota Tundra pickup trucks, both available as hybrids. Maple Toyota near Canada's Wonderland in the Maple Auto Mall.
Interesting. You went off the board there with Murakami. You know, with the home. Are you a home run derby guy? You're a no guy to the home run derby?
No, it's like going to the driving range.
I don't know. I still like it. I'm happy they've gone away from the timed.
That was
situation
ridiculous.
here.
That's a great way to ruin your swing.
Wow. I think maybe some guys felt it did, but
no, it's no, not into it. Sorry.
No guy.
There we go. No guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, guy.
Well, you don't have to apologize if you like it or you don't, but I'll be watching.
Well, it's always fun. It's always great to see athletes getting along with each other in terms of they don't see each other much and they have fun. Although with interleague play now, they see a lot of each other. But I just like to, see sort of the looseness of it.
Yeah, that's a cool vibe for sure.
Yeah,
it really is.
It is. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we'll be talking soccer with Julian de Guzman. And, of course, we've got the semis tomorrow, France, Spain, and we'll be on it sometime after 5 until 7, depending on regular time or not. And the Saturday games went long. And England, Argentina, Wednesday. And, again, we'll be on slightly after 5 on Wednesday as well. I'm looking forward to that. That's great soccer. You would never say it wasn't when you get to the World Cup. It's like the Olympics. There's always something there.
It's some of the best drama that you can ever sign up for. It really is. And that's why they're going to make it bigger, Jim.
Yeah.
Because being bigger this year is just not big enough.
I'm at the point now where I've seen enough expansion. I want to know what it's worth.
Yeah.
I don't. You could tell me what we're going to do. I don't care if you do it or not. I want to know what it's worth because I want to track that. I want to know I want to understand the reason behind this.
Wow, we've said it a few times on this show. Is like everybody would love to know what the books look like at FIFA headquarters, right? But I don't think they open those up to anybody.
No, not on purpose.
Often.
That's for sure. It's not public viewing.
No.
OverDrive continues on TSN 1050, the iHeartRadio app, streaming online, TSN 4 and 5, and live on YouTube.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
OverDrive on a Monday. Jim Taddy, Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star subbing for the regulars who have some time off. We talked a lot about Kawhi, and of course he's there with the Raptors in Vegas, the Summer League. This is one of the better things that all pro sports does. The NBA Summer League is kind of fascinating, all in Vegas, and even if you're not playing and you're a veteran, you show up to support your guys. I like it.
It's like an off-season basketball convention, and there he is.
Yeah.
Okay, talking to Danny Green, right? Courtside, looking good.
Yeah.
All right, here he is. Some good footage there, Kawhi. We saw him, of course, in Toronto last week for the ceremony to commemorate Kyle Lowry's soon-to-be retired number 7.
Yep.
And there's potential Raptors number 2, Kawhi Leonard, looking good on the sidelines.
I mean, talk about a feel-good story. We don't know what happens with that trade, but I think you have to, at some point, understand that it's going to be worked out one way or the other. I'm
not sure about that. There's Larry
so?
Tannenbaum, and there's Larry Tannenbaum courtside. Of course, the former
outgoing
minority owner of the Toronto Raptors when that deal closes, which it's already been announced underway. So,
is there a world where you see that trade being voided?
Yeah.
Really?
First of all, we have no idea what this investigation is going to produce, right? It's been
that's true.
Incredibly long. I'll say that. Whether that means it's been incredibly thorough is another question. Just because they're taking a lot of time doesn't mean they're doing a good job. This independent law firm, so-called independent law firm that is investigating the situation for the NBA.
And they're probably not going to be in any hurry because of billable hours.
You think so? $2,000, $3,000. What is it now for the best lawyers in New York? $5,000 an hour? I don't know.
Well, it'll be thorough. It might take a while, but So what do you do if you don't have that answer by training camp? I mean, it's got. I mean, I know there's probably no time limit on it because if there was, it would have been done by now. But boy, how do you sort of suspend all of that and then revisit it once the season starts? The season starts.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, now there's urgency because, there's real interest in what the heck's going to happen here. And
Yeah, the light's on it now.
And we've already heard Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, express a certain amount of frustration, saying, you can't investigate forever. You need to come up with some results eventually.
I know, but if it's an independent, and it is independent investigation, they will do it in their own time, because any sort of interference that way impugns the investigation, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I've always, just philosophically, how independent can an investigation be when it is being funded by the owners, essentially by the league, which is the owners? So it's an investigation of the league by the league, or funded by the league. So I understand that the law firm has a duty to be independent, but they are getting paid by somebody.
I would like to see the volumes of paper that investigation would generate.
Oh, what kind of paper? You talking about the paper that you put in your bank account?
No. I mean the files. I mean, there's got to be 4 or 5 suitcases on wheels there.
I don't know. I mean, who knows? We don't know anything about this investigation because they haven't told us what they're investigating or how, what they found. And until they do, it's hard to speculate. We know what Pablo Torre found in his investigation of the aspiration situation, and it looks awfully incriminating in terms of a pretty clear case of salary cap circumvention. We also know the LA Clippers deny any such nefarious activity, and that Kawhi has moved on from his agent and his advisor, Uncle Dennis Robertson, and he's trying to turn the page. But, exactly to your point, Kawhi is trying to turn the page. The law firm is stacking up pages that, as you point out, probably can, how many of those bankers' boxes full of documents do we have here? Probably quite a few.
A couple of storage units, I would guess.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, that story just goes into a loop. And the soccer, Julian de Guzman will be by very shortly to chat about this. France against Spain tomorrow, England against Argentina on Wednesday, and then the final is Sunday in New York, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
New York, New Jersey.
Right.
They're calling it. I think New Jersey got upset that they called it New York, even though it's in New Jersey.
Yeah.
You can see New York.
That's right. It's over there.
You can see the tall buildings, but then you realize, wait, I'm in East Rutherford, New Jersey. This isn't really New York.
What does that hold? That's got to be 75, 80.
It's 80,000.
Yeah.
In that range.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Well, that'll be good. I mean, that's the best soccer. That's a must-see game. That's for sure. Not that these other two aren't. They are.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be fabulous drama, and we'll be watching every second.
Yep, absolutely. And the All-Star break is here in Philadelphia. The Homer Derby tonight, the game tomorrow night, and then on to the second half, which is what, for the Jays, 66 games?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, the final 66. You wonder what could be accomplished over. I mean, what would the record have to be? If you're only 2.5 out, it doesn't have to be that good, but I wonder what the projection is for how they want to finish.
Feels like anything over 500 would probably get you into the wild card spot.
Well, again, depending on what everybody does at the trade deadline, which could be they might just all match each other, and it might not go anywhere that way. I just, you said this earlier. I mean, it is still up to the guys who aren't producing to produce.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, right now the third wild card spot is a sub 500 team. There's currently Seattle and Minnesota are sitting in a tie in the third wild card spot at 1 game under. So I mean, the Jays are right there. They're 2.5 games out. It's amazing how, as poorly as it's gone, if you just strictly look at the margin between where you want to be and where you are, it's pretty slim.
All right, let's talk soccer now. Julian de Guzman is here, TSN soccer analyst, head of sport for the New York Red Bulls. Julian, welcome in. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So let's go through these semis. France, Spain tomorrow, England, Argentina on Wednesday. How do you see this playing out?
Oof. Exciting. I think this is a dream semifinal round, given that you got the big guns. I sense France would be the favorites to get themselves in the finals against a team like Spain. Spain, in my eyes, is the only team out of the 4 that could challenge and possibly beat France. They bring a different style of football. They play a style that's super unique. Only they've mastered that. The other team that would probably play a similar style is Croatia in their prime. But Spain's a team that will definitely challenge them in the semifinal round. So it is almost like a final. On the other side, England and Argentina. I think when you look at England, they are moving on upwards based on their performance, especially against Mexico. That match in Azteca was the biggest hurdle they've faced in a long time at this level and at this competition, and they were able to perform. They were able to play with a lot of intelligence, and Thomas Tuchel definitely has really shown a different style of English football. And given that they, did make it to the next round, against a team like Norway, he wasn't pleased with the performance. Mostly, teams that make it that far, they would celebrate it. Thomas Tuchel, very disciplined in outlining that the performance wasn't good enough, but the mentality was there. The determination was certainly there. So he's going to want more from the guys. And England have not even hit their high spot yet. So I think they could do that against a team like Argentina. And then Argentina is going to be all about Messi, right? If Messi is on and Messi is ready to step up with the matches he's played and the performance he's had, there's a really good chance that he could challenge England. But I would say right now Argentina is the favorites, only because it's a team that 70% of the guys have been around under Leo Scaloni for the last World Cup. They clearly play a special style of football. With Paredes in the midfield, De Paul, these are the guys that really are the anchor of the team, but then the difference maker and the star of the team, Messi himself, if he steps up, and he typically does in these type of matches, I'm pretty sure that he'll get them to the next round. So I'm seeing a France and Argentina final. My wish is Spain. I enjoy their football, but I do see France and Argentina making the finals, and then I think France are the favorites to take it all.
Well, let's go back to that Thomas Tuchel situation, Julian, because obviously the British press has been all over the fact that, at a moment where England is 2 wins away from, clinching its first World Cup since the famous 1966, there's been some tension, a kind of a unexpected tension, where the coach is saying we didn't do our best. You've got the best player, the star of the English squad in this tournament, in a lot of ways, Jude Bellingham, pushing back and saying, this coach doesn't understand how hard it is out there when you're playing against a team of that quality. And it doesn't feel like there should be tension at a moment like this, and yet there is. What do you make of it?
So Thomas Tuchel, you look at his history and his background, spending his time, a lot of his time, learning his trade, playing the game as well in Germany. That culture comes with a different type of expectation and approach. I lived in Germany and played in the Bundesliga for almost 6 years, so I really have a good understanding of where he's coming from. When a team does well, great. He doesn't want to over-celebrate it. He knows they could be better, and that's essentially what he's trying to show his group. Harry Kane and his comments and and what he said based on what Tuchel said accepted that for sure. Jude Bellingham, he's also right where it's been hard. It's been hard, and it hasn't been easy. And you're in a tournament structured style where you have to just win at the end of the day, right? So, but Tuchel definitely wants to see more from the guys, and if they want to win something, for sure he's going to challenge them. So, it's great from him, to be honest. I think it's a good approach going into a very important match. Again, another hard match against a team like Argentina. So he wants to keep the guys sharp. He wants to keep them honest. And I think this is a good way to maybe push the culture into a different direction. When England wins and they get this far, they typically over-celebrate, and then they can't get over the line, right? So maybe they do need this push from a guy like Thomas Tuchel to get it over the line and get themselves to the finals and finally win something since 1966. The other thing to discuss is there hasn't been a country to have won the World Cup with a foreign coach. So this is also an interesting approach where this could be game-changing for the entire country itself. If there's success that comes with this, then you can only imagine how much of an impact a guy like Thomas Tuchel could be for the English game.
We were talking earlier in the broadcast about now 48 teams going to 64. What do you think of that?
Listen, it's entertainment. It involves the world. I mean, I look at it on two ways. One way where now it's become almost easy, and it doesn't really hold that title. Making a World Cup is like, wow, you got to be the best in the world, when once upon a time it used to be 24 teams, right? So the more teams involved, I think it's a different approach, and it's something I mentioned on one of the broadcasts of games for Canada. I think now the expectation is getting out of the group. Getting out of the group is almost like another qualifying stage. It's making the knockout stages is where you become the bigger talking points, making the round of 32, making the round of 16. Then I think those are different expectations you could talk about for a lot of these countries where then you've actually made the World Cup, making the knockout stage. Making the group stage it's a good start. Sure, there's a lot to be said with the amount of people who are watching the game. There's a lot to be said about the money that comes into the federations. But I think the big picture is now who are the teams that people talk about most, and it comes down to the knockout stage. And I think it relates to what we see in North America, how we value playoffs. Playoffs is also a big talking point in all the sports that we see in North America, whether it's the NBA, NHL, MLB, MLS. So I see World Cup now going in the direction where the playoff round, the knockout round is where you want to be. The group stage is it's definitely something that could be acceptable for maybe 64 teams if that's the case. But if you don't make it out of the group, then you could definitely lose a lot of credibility, and I think that's what's going to happen moving forward when you have that many more teams involved in this type of tournament.
I mean, when you look at it, Julian, they obviously expanded from 32 to 48 for this World Cup. Another 16 teams would be required. They'd go from 104 matches in this format with 48 teams to 128 matches with 64 teams. And yet this one expanded, and we still got the top 4 teams in the world in the Final Four. I mean, is it like it is kind of I understand the economics of it. The more matches you have, the bigger your TV rights package, the more money you get from more hydration breaks and all the rest of it. But I mean, this idea that it grows the game and makes the game more equitable around the world. I mean, if the powerhouses remain the powerhouses, I'm not sure what really changes.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a good thing to see when you see those powerhouse teams make it that far. That's going to always be the expectation. I mean, a team like Germany not making the semifinals, is a huge setback and disappointment for a nation of that stature. Brazil as well. Brazil certainly had expectations to make the semifinals as well. We could talk about the Netherlands. I mean, there's a lot of these teams that historically typically make it that far in the tournament. It's now having the involvement of many other teams and many other countries. And I think what that's done is it's really, in some way, brought the world together. And, it's always interesting to see and learn how different countries and followings are now participating in these tournaments. Cape Verde being one of these teams where nobody had ever a conversation about a player from Cape Verde. Now the goalkeeper is like a star player. And, I think those are some of the cool things that helps not just the country and federations themselves to evolve as a nation, but also for technical directors, sporting directors, and club football. They could identify these players at a high level and recruit them and bring them into their environment. So the exposure piece for me certainly is a big bonus, and I'm certainly a little bit envious of that because in my playing days, if there were 64 teams, I mean, I'm pretty sure I would have played in a few World Cups and had that exposure. But I think it's positive where you're growing the game and you're getting the smaller nations involved, and it continues to help those federations and nations that evolve as a country in itself. So I love it, but at the end of the day, there's going to be pressure for the big nations, as you mentioned, to make it to the round of quarterfinals or the semifinals.
Julian, as a soccer guy, when you watch Messi play, and you've watched him for a number of years, and this is his World Cup swan song, and when you watch Mbappe play, I mean, as a former player, what do you see? This has to be really thrilling to watch these guys.
I mean, Messi, there's probably going to only be one Messi that ever existed in our lifetime, and it's just amazing to know that this is a guy who could still perform at this level at his age. It doesn't seem like he's lost a step, and I love it. I've played against Messi. I've had a chance to compete with him when he was younger, when he was mobile, when he was covering more ground. But now you're seeing a different version of him that still allows him to be, the greatest player of all time. And typically when you hit that point in your career, you decline, you probably don't cover as much ground, and you don't also score that many goals. But for him to still be one of the top scorers of the tournament, it's just amazing. And he brings football that I enjoy. He brings football that reminds me a lot of a player like Diego Maradona, for instance, and even Pelé. But it's just amazing how he could bring the fans and the followings and there's just the love of the game together. And you could tell how much that's done for the game in itself. Mbappe, on the other hand, I mean, wow, what a player he is, and I think he is the modern day type of striker you want on your team. Whether it's a striker, whether it's a winger, he's so dynamic, he's powerful, he's fast, he's all those things that we see players have in terms of their athletic and physical ability. And typically, when you're that strong and physically fast and powerful, your IQ doesn't really follow suit. You probably are not the quickest thinker on the field. You're probably not able to read the game as quick. But he brings both at the highest level. And it's almost like what Thierry Henry was in his prime. So it's great to see him do well as well. And, knowing that he's already won a World Cup, it's also historically to know or interesting to know that he could possibly win a second World Cup at such a young age. So both players are excellent. And, if both of them clash in the finals again, I mean, this would be a super exciting World Cup to remember.
So, Julian, you're with the Red Bulls. The MLS will be coming back after this World Cup. What is the approach when you get players coming back from a World Cup and the emotional investment they've put in, and not to mention the physical investment they've put in? I mean, how do you guys as a club team sort of reintegrate them and try and maximize their performance when it gets back to the club season?
Yeah, no, that's always an interesting discussion in all the clubs that have players participating in World Cups. And I would say to some degree, we fortunately we didn't have any of our players participate in this World Cup, so we had a chance to keep them together, contain them, manage their workload, rebuild them for a second part of the season. So that's one advantage. But when you do have those players, and we've seen it in the past, especially when they go to these national team call-ups, and when they come back, they're drained. So this World Cup in itself, a lot of these players who are just focused on one task, and they're obviously emotionally enjoying the moment, and it's a dream for them. But at the same time, the amount of effort and the amount of output they're putting physically on a day-to-day, it's a lot. And whether it's 4 weeks to 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks of being with a national team and away from home and away from your day-to-day environment, it is mentally draining. And when they're out of that bubble and they come back to reality and they see that they have a game on the weekend where they got to fight for points again, it's hard to switch on. And you usually see a trend where players decline in their performance, and they might need extra time off. They might need extra time to rebuild themselves as well. So it's a tough juggle, and that's so important for the clubs to have the right resources and the support for these players. But in our case at Red Bull, I mean, we didn't have any players go to the tournament, so we had a chance to manage them, as I mentioned. But we had some staff. We had staff that went there. They just got back from the Canadians national team, and you could see in their faces they're just wondering what just happened, and they're in complete awe with the experience, and they're still suffering from the defeat against Morocco, eh? And that takes time to bounce back from. So you can only imagine what the players go through when they get knocked out of a World Cup, and now they got to switch on and perform for their clubs on a week-to-week basis.
Julian, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Julian de Guzman, TSN soccer analyst and head of sport for the New York Red Bulls. We're talking about greatness. You've seen enough of these guys, and we've all covered them. When they break in, the expected greatness draws you in. Then there's the bulk of their career, which just sets a new standard. And then there's the exit, which is a real lesson in understanding how intelligent the athlete is, because he's able to buy time on a body that doesn't do what he wants it to do, but because of his smarts and because of what he achieved, he knows what not to do and is able to extend that. It's a remarkable run. Some of these guys go 20 years, and it's phenomenal to watch.
Oh, I mean, like Messi is the best example. I mean, people have been talking about, how much longer does he have for how long, right? And here he is, putting up incredible numbers, continuing to leave jaws on the floor at the World Cup. I mean, it's another World Cup after leading Argentina to the victory in the last one. I don't know if a lot of people saw him staying at this level this long, but certainly we've seen those select few athletes, the Tom Brady's and LeBron Jameses and Lionel Messi's of the world, they find a way.
They do, and it's fun to watch. So Spain against France tomorrow at 3 on TSN 1050. And then Wednesday, England against Argentina, 3, TSN 1050, and on the TV side as well. Overdrive continues on TSN 1050, the iHeartRadio app, streaming online, TSN 4 and 5, and live on YouTube.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Overdrive, final segment for a Monday. Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. And today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. And the pick is the Home Run Derby, Mr. Caminero, plus 360 to win.
Okay. Junior Caminero.
Junior Caminero, 360 to win.
It's a great name.
Plus 360. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Same-game parlays are available for every MLB game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. Must be 19 or over and physically located in Ontario. I don't care where your mind is. Physically, you have to be in Ontario, probably south of the whatever guy lounge.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
What do you prefer? You know, we were talking about the incredibly sweltering conditions that England-Norway game was played in on the weekend.
Yeah.
Where guys just seemed like players were just almost paralyzed, like they were just cramping up and they had to be taken out of game. And yet the semifinals are both in dome stadiums with air conditioning. You got tomorrow's game in Jerry World down in Dallas, and then you got the England Argentina game in Atlanta. What do you prefer?
I would prefer air conditioning.
Yeah,
but I think if I was playing, it would be relative. As I wear down, so does the guy who's covering me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I always defer to the players in that situation, is they know how worn down they are, and they know how worn down the other guy is. I don't care what it looks like. They're actually living it.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting one. I mean, something about it seems like it should be an outdoor sport, but I guess we've crossed that bridge.
Well, we're out of time. We'll be back tomorrow. Frankie C in your seat tomorrow. So until then, have a good night.